Ryan was lounging on the couch, absorbed in a video game, when he heard his brother Alex's voice booming from the front door. "Caleb's here!" Alex called out excitedly. Ryan groaned internally. Caleb, Alex's best friend, had a way of making him frustrated and uncomfortable. Ever since they were kids, Caleb had loved to tease Ryan, often crossing the line from friendly banter to something that made Ryan uncomfortable. But today felt different. More charged. It was another one of those evenings when Ryan's brother, Alex, invited his best friend, Caleb, over. Usually, Ryan didn't mind these hangouts, except for one reason. Caleb, an alpha, always seemed to push boundaries with his teasing and advances. Caleb was tall, muscular, and had a way of smiling that made Ryan feel exposed. As a beta, Ryan was used to being the target of jokes from his brother and Caleb, who both loved poking fun at his boring beta status. Tonight was no different. Caleb leaned against Ryan as Ryan tried to keep his focus on his game, but Caleb's presence always threw him off. "Are you sure you're not secretly in Omega?" Caleb teased, his voice low and playful, a smirk tugging at his lips. Ryan shot him a glare, heat rising in his face. "I'm sure, Caleb. I'm just a regular beta." Caleb moved a little closer, his body warmth making the space feel tighter. "Could have fooled me. You look like an Omega and you act like one too. Also, don't forget how you always get so worked up when I'm around." Ryan's heart raced despite his deep frown. "Maybe if you weren't always in my personal space, I wouldn't." Alex, oblivious to the tension, strolled in, clapping Caleb on the back with a grin. "Come on, Ryan, lighten up. He's just teasing." Ryan rolled his eyes, but he couldn't shake the way Caleb's proximity made his pulse race. He hated how Caleb could get under his skin so easily. Caleb was tall, with a muscular build and that cocky grin that could disarm anyone. Alex took a controller and was about to start playing with Ryan when Caleb snatched it from him and started competing with Ryan. "Hey, Ryan! Still terrible at this game, I see," he said, leaning over Ryan's shoulder to get a better look at the screen. Ryan rolled his eyes, trying to ignore the rush of heat flooding his face. "And yet, here you are, wasting your Saturday trying to beat me," he shot back, attempting to keep his voice light. Inside, he felt the familiar flutter of nerves. Why did he always let Caleb get under his skin? Alex plopped down on the couch, grabbing another controller. "Let's see if Caleb can actually win for once," he teased, throwing a playful look at his friend. As they started playing, Caleb continued to make snide comments directed at Ryan. "You know, if you spent less time gaming and more time in the gym, you might actually start not looking like an Omega." Ryan shot him a glare. "Shut up," he retorted. Caleb chuckled, clearly enjoying the banter. As the evening wore on, Ryan excused himself to the kitchen to get a drink, hoping to escape the tension. He leaned against the counter, taking a moment to breathe. The air felt thick with unspoken words and desire, and it was driving him crazy. Just then, Caleb walked in, leaning against the doorway with that infuriating smirk plastered across his face. "What's wrong, Ryan? Feeling overwhelmed by all this alpha energy?" Ryan couldn't help but roll his eyes again. "I'm not feeling anything," he lied, crossing his arms defensively. Caleb stepped closer, his playful demeanor fading slightly. "Seriously, are you okay? You seem a little off." "I'm fine," Ryan insisted, though he felt a wave of anxiety wash over him. The tension between them was palpable. Caleb's presence loomed larger, his alpha energy radiating and causing Ryan to flush with heat. Caleb leaned in, his voice dropping to a low murmur. "You know, you can tell me anything, right?" He leaned closer to Ryan, tilting his head slightly. Before Ryan could respond, Alex shouted from the living room, "Hey, stop flirting and come help me with this level." A few days later, Alex was out running errands, leaving Ryan alone in the house. Ryan found himself in the living room, scrolling through his phone, when Caleb walked in. He didn't say anything, but the atmosphere was thick with tension. Caleb's eyes were darker than usual, his gaze intense and focused solely on Ryan. "Caleb?" Ryan asked, feeling uneasy. "You okay?" Caleb didn't respond right away. Instead, he moved closer, his steps deliberate and slow, like a predator approaching prey. Ryan's heart began to pound in his chest, an unfamiliar sense of dread and something else creeping up on him. Suddenly, It hit him. Caleb was going into rut. Ryan's body reacted before his mind could catch up. A wave of heat rolled through him, his senses heightening. Confusion clouded his thoughts as his skin tingled and his breath quickened. This wasn't normal. He was a beta, so he wasn't supposed to feel this way. But Caleb's rut was triggering something deep inside him, something he didn't understand. Caleb's voice was low and husky when he finally spoke, still waking towards Ryan. Ryan, I don't think you're just a beta. Ryan's head spun, panic mixing with the strange heat coursing through him. What are you talking about? Ryan croaked out. Caleb moved even closer, his scent overwhelming Ryan's senses. You're reacting to my rut. Only Omegas do that. Ryan's eyes widened in shock, his body trembling as Caleb's words sunk in. That's impossible. He shook his head in disbelief, but his body was telling him otherwise. The heat building inside him, the ache, the overwhelming desire. It was all too much. His heart raced as he tried to make sense of what was happening. He couldn't be an Omega. He was a beta. He'd always been a beta. Caleb's hand brushed Ryan's arm, sending sparks of electricity through him. You're turning into a recessive Omega. Ryan stumbled back, his mind racing. No, this can't be happening. But his body betrayed him. The heat, the desire, the pull toward Caleb. It all made sense now. He was going into heat, triggered by Caleb's rut, and he had no idea how to handle it. Caleb, sensing Ryan's confusion, stepped closer, his voice dropping to a teasing whisper. You're burning up, aren't you? Feeling things you've never felt before? Ryan's breath hitched as Caleb's words sent a shiver down his spine. He wanted to deny it, to push Caleb away, but his body was betraying him. Every touch, every word from Caleb only intensified the heat inside him. Shut up, Ryan muttered, though his voice lacked conviction. His body ached with an unfamiliar need, and it was terrifying and exhilarating all at once. Caleb's smirk deepened. I knew there was something different about you. You've always acted like you're just a beta, but look at you now. Ryan's mind was a jumble of thoughts, trying to fight the pull of his instincts. But Caleb's teasing voice, his intense presence, made it impossible to focus. Admit it, Caleb murmured, his lips dangerously close to Ryan's ear. You're craving me right now. Ryan's body responded before his brain could catch up, a whimper escaping his lips. He hated the way his body was reacting, the way Caleb's words were affecting him. He didn't want to make any rash decisions, so he used all his strength to push Caleb off him before quickly dashing towards his room, leaving Caleb standing alone in the living room. After that day, things became more tense between Ryan and Caleb. Ryan tried his best to avoid Caleb, but couldn't because of Caleb's regular visitation to their house. One evening, Alex went out for the night, leaving Ryan and Caleb alone in the house. Ryan wondered why Caleb didn't go with Alex, because they always went out together, but shrugged it off. He tried to keep himself busy with a movie, but he could feel Caleb's energy bouncing off the walls. Hey, can I grab a drink? Caleb called from the kitchen, his voice echoing. Sure. Whatever. Ryan replied, his heart racing at the thought of being alone with him. A few minutes later, Caleb returned, a bottle of beer in hand, and plopped down next to Ryan on the couch. You mind if I take over the remote? He asked, reaching across Ryan's lap. Ryan's breath hitched as he felt the warmth of Caleb's body close to his. Oh, yeah. Go ahead, he said, trying to play it cool, but his mind was racing. As they settled into the movie, Ryan felt an unexpected wave of heat wash over him, making it hard to concentrate. He shifted in his seat, feeling extremely uncomfortable. Something wrong? Caleb asked, releasing more of his pheromones. Ryan shook his head, but the heat intensified. No, I'm just, he began, but the words trailed off as he fell to his knees. Caleb leaned in, their faces inches apart again. Hey, you're looking a little flushed there, Ryan. Ryan was about to respond when he was hit with the sudden realization that Caleb was going into rut. Panic coursed through Ryan as he realized what this meant. He was slowly turning into an Omega, just like Caleb said. Caleb, you need to stop releasing pheromones, Ryan began. But before he could finish, the air shifted, and the heat in the room became palpable. Caleb's alpha energy enveloped Ryan, causing his instincts to flare up. Ryan gasped, feeling his body responding despite his mind's protests. Caleb leaned closer, a low growl escaping his lips. "You don't have to fight it, Ryan. Just let go." Ryan struggled to get up, and when he could finally feel his legs, he bolted out of the room. After a sleepless night filled with confusion and tension, Ryan woke up to the lingering scent of Caleb pheromones still in the air. He felt disoriented, his body hot and restless, every inch of him craving something he didn't understand. He stumbled into the bathroom, splashing cold water on his face, trying to clear his mind. As he looked into the mirror, a realization hit him like a ton of bricks. He was undergoing a shift, something he had only heard about in whispers. His body was responding to Caleb's alpha nature, and he felt utterly unprepared for what that meant. When Ryan returned to the living room, Caleb was already there, a smug grin plastered across his face. "Feeling better?" he teased, eyeing Ryan up and down. Ryan glared at him, trying to mask his anxiety. "Shut up. You're the reason I feel like this." Ryan realized that Caleb was releasing his pheromones intentionally. Caleb's expression shifted, a flash of something deeper flickering in his eyes. "I didn't mean to trigger you. I was just trying to see if you've truly turned into an Omega. I'm sorry, but you can't deny that there's something happening between us." Ryan's heart raced at the truth in Caleb's words. He hated how much he wanted to agree, how his body responded to the mere presence of the alpha. "I'm not an Omega," he insisted, crossing his arms defensively. "Even if you're not," Caleb said, stepping closer again, "you can't deny what you're feeling." As the days continued to pass, Ryan found himself caught in a whirlwind of emotions. His body was reacting to Caleb in ways he couldn't comprehend, yet he still resisted the idea of fully embracing his new reality. One evening, Alex went on a date with Katie, a girl he has been talking to, so Ryan was left at home alone. Ryan found himself in the kitchen, trying to distract himself by cooking dinner. As he chopped vegetables, he felt Caleb's presence behind him. He realized Alex had probably given him a spare key to get in the house, because this was not the first time he had strolled in the house as if he lived there. "Need help?" Caleb asked, leaning against the counter with that infuriating grin. "No, I'm fine," Ryan snapped, trying to maintain his focus. But the tension in the air was thick, and he could feel Caleb's eyes on him, making it hard to concentrate. Suddenly, a loud crash broke the silence. Ryan had dropped a glass, and it shattered on the floor. "Crap!" he exclaimed, bending down to clean up the mess. Caleb was at his side in an instant, kneeling beside him. "You okay?" he asked, his voice suddenly serious. "Yeah, I'm fine," Ryan muttered. But as he met Caleb's gaze, the moment hung heavy between them. Caleb's breath hitched as he leaned closer, his body almost brushing against Ryan's. "You don't have to hide from me, Ryan. I see you." "See me? As what, an Omega?" Ryan scoffed, trying to laugh it off, but his heart was racing. Caleb's expression hardened, frustration evident in his eyes. "You're not a beta anymore, and you know it." Ryan felt the heat creeping back, but he refused to let it consume him. "I'm still me," he insisted, though his voice trembled. "Then why do you keep looking at me like that?" Caleb's voice was low, almost a growl. Ryan opened his mouth to protest, but instead, he felt his body respond to Caleb's proximity. Caleb leaned in to capture Ryan's lips in an intense kiss. Ryan mind fogged, but he didn't pull away, instead leaning in to kiss him back. Caleb lifted Ryan up by his bum and placed him on the countertop, trailing kisses down his neck, while his other hand quickly turned off the electric stove Ryan was cooking with. As Caleb pressed Ryan against the kitchen counter, their lips moving together with an urgency that felt both intoxicating and terrifying, Ryan's thoughts scattered like the glass shards on the floor. The world outside faded, leaving only the heat of their bodies and the pounding of his heart. "Caleb!" Ryan gasped as Caleb pulled away to catch his breath, his forehead resting against Ryan's. "What are we doing?" Caleb's eyes, usually so playful, were now filled with a fierce intensity. "What we should have done a long time ago," he said, brushing his thumb across Ryan's cheek. "You can't keep pretending this isn't real." Ryan opened his mouth to argue, but the words died in his throat as Caleb leaned in again, capturing his lips in another kiss that sent electric shocks down his spine. His instincts flared, responding to Caleb's alpha energy in a way he couldn't fight anymore. With a newfound boldness, Ryan wrapped his legs around Caleb's waist, pulling him closer as he deepened the kiss. The weight of their unspoken feelings crashed over him, overwhelming any lingering doubts. He wanted this. He wanted Caleb. Caleb broke the kiss, breathing heavily. "Let's take this to your room." With a swift motion, Caleb lifted Ryan effortlessly, and he squeaked in surprise, wrapping his arms around Caleb's neck as they stumbled toward the hallway. Every step felt like a declaration, a step toward a future he hadn't dared to imagine until now. Once inside Ryan's room, Caleb set him down gently but kept his hands firm on Ryan's hips, grounding him, their breathing loud in the silence that enveloped them. Ryan's heart raced as he took in the sight of Caleb, his tousled hair and the way his shirt clung to his body, showcasing every muscle. "Ryan," Caleb said, his voice low and serious. "Are you sure about this?" The question hung between them, heavy with meaning. Ryan's mind raced, but his body knew what it wanted. He nodded, feeling the heat from earlier flare up again, igniting his nerves. "I'm sure," he breathed, determination lacing his words. With a predatory grace, Caleb stepped closer, their bodies almost touching. "Then let me show you how right this can feel," he murmured, leaning down to capture Ryan's lips once more. The kiss deepened, and Ryan surrendered to the moment, feeling the world around them fade into oblivion. Caleb's hands roamed, exploring the curve of Ryan's waist and the small of his back, sending shivers coursing through him. Ryan responded instinctively, leaning into Caleb's touch, reveling in the sensations that ignited his skin. "God, you feel so good," Caleb whispered against Ryan's neck, trailing kisses along his jawline. "I've wanted this for so long." Ryan's breath hitched as Caleb's lips moved lower, brushing against his collarbone. "Caleb," he gasped, losing himself in the sensation. "You don't have to hold back," Caleb urged, his voice a low growl. "Let me take care of you." Ryan shivered at the promise in Caleb's words, feeling his resolve begin to crumble. Every fiber of his being screamed for more, and as Caleb continued to worship his skin with soft kisses and teasing bites, he felt himself melting under the alpha's touch. Before Ryan could second-guess himself, he tangled his fingers in Caleb's hair, pulling him closer as a low moan escaped his lips. "Please, Caleb," he breathed, his voice barely above a whisper. "Don't stop." Caleb's eyes darkened with desire as he lifted Ryan effortlessly, depositing him onto the bed. The sheets were cool against Ryan's skin, a stark contrast to the heat radiating from Caleb. As Caleb hovered over him, Ryan felt a surge of vulnerability but also a sense of exhilarating freedom. This was a moment of truth, a leap into the unknown. The connection between them was undeniable, the magnetic pull drawing them together like moths to a flame. "Are you ready?" Caleb asked, his breath warm against Ryan's lips. "More than ever," Ryan replied, his voice steady. The last sense of doubt slipped away as Caleb leaned in to kiss him again, sealing the promise of what was to come. The night unfolded in a haze of passion and exploration. Ryan and Caleb lost themselves in each other, surrendering to the primal pull of their instincts, their bodies moving together in perfect harmony. They discovered new heights of pleasure and intimacy, each kiss and caress deepening their bond in ways they never thought possible. As they lay together afterward, tangled in sheets and each other's arms, Ryan felt a profound sense of belonging wash over him. The chaos of the past few days faded into the background, replaced by the warmth of Caleb's embrace. Caleb brushed a stray hair from Ryan's forehead, looking down at him with an expression that made Ryan's heart swell. "I knew there was something special between us," Caleb murmured. Ryan smiled softly, feeling the weight of his fears lift. "I just didn't want to admit it," Ryan confessed, a shy smile tugging at his lips. "You don't have to be afraid anymore," Caleb said, leaning down to press a gentle kiss to Ryan's forehead. "I'll be here for you, no matter what." In that moment, Ryan realized that he wasn't just embracing his new reality as an Omega. He was also embracing the possibility of love. With Caleb by his side, he felt ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead, knowing they would navigate them together. And for the first time in a long time, he felt truly free. As the weeks passed, Ryan found himself enveloped in a new rhythm of life. He and Caleb were inseparable, their bond deepening as they navigated the complexities of Ryan's transformation into an Omega. Every day was filled with new sensations and experiences. But beneath the surface, something shifted within Ryan. a feeling that was both thrilling and terrifying. One evening, as Ryan prepared dinner while Caleb lounged nearby, he felt a sudden wave of nausea wash over him. He paused, gripping the countertop as he tried to steady himself. "Ryan? You okay?" Caleb looked up, concern etching his features. "Yeah, just a little dizzy," Ryan replied, forcing a smile. But deep down, he couldn't shake the feeling that something was off. Over the next few days, the nausea persisted, coupled with bouts of fatigue and cravings that were impossible to ignore. It wasn't long before Ryan found himself staring at the small, white stick on the bathroom counter. Pregnant. The word echoed in his mind, sending a mix of fear and elation coursing through him. He could hardly believe it. He was carrying Caleb's child. The reality felt both exhilarating and daunting. But how would he tell Caleb? Or worse, how would Alex react? That evening, Caleb had left to grab some groceries after Ryan had forced him to. Ryan paced the living room, his heart racing. Just then, Alex walked through the door, his face brightening when he saw Ryan. "Hey, little bro, how's it going?" Alex greeted. He grinned, wrapping his arms around Ryan. Not much," Ryan stammered, glancing at the clock. "Caleb just went out." "Yeah, I saw him outside with that stupid grin on his face." "What's up with you two?" Alex teased, but Ryan could sense the underlying concern in his brother's tone. "I need to tell you something," Ryan said, his voice trembling slightly. "It's important and it's about Caleb." Before Ryan could gather his thoughts, Caleb burst through the door, arms loaded with bags. "Guess what he started?" But his voice trailed off when he saw the tension in the room. "Hey, Caleb," Alex greeted, his tone shifting instantly. "What are you doing here so often?" I'm just hanging out with Ryan," Caleb replied, trying to keep his demeanor casual. "Is that all?" Alex challenged, crossing his arms. He figured out what was going on. He noticed Ryan's change of scent, and he was angry at himself for not noticing sooner. "Alex, stop," Ryan began, but Alex cut him off. "Stay out of this, Ryan. You're my brother, and I can't just sit back while he was cut off my Caleb." "I what?" Caleb stepped in, his voice firm. "I care about Ryan. He's not just some fling." "That's easy for you to say," Alex snapped. "What do you know about commitment? He's my brother. I won't let you hurt him." Ryan's heart raced as he watched the confrontation unfold. "Stop it, both of you," he shouted, his emotions boiling over. "This isn't helping." Caleb turned to Ryan, concern etched on his face. "What's going on, Ryan?" Before Ryan could respond, he felt the nausea return, and he stumbled backward, clutching his stomach. "I think I'm pregnant." Silence fell over the room, thick with shock. Alex's expression shifted from anger to disbelief. "What?" Ryan nodded, tears welling in his eyes. "It's Caleb's and I don't know what to do." Caleb's eyes widened, a mix of joy and panic swirling within them. "You're serious?" "Yeah. I took a test," Ryan confirmed, his voice shaky. "I didn't want to tell you like this. Why didn't you say anything sooner?" Caleb's tone was softer now, filled with concern. "I would have been there for you. I didn't know how to tell you or Alex," Ryan admitted, feeling the weight of their scrutiny. "I was scared." Alex stepped forward, his anger dissipating as he processed the news. "You're really pregnant?" His voice softened, concern flooding his features. "Yeah," Ryan said, his heart racing as he met his brother's gaze. "I know this changes everything." Alex rubbed the back of his neck, trying to absorb the reality of the situation. "I'm sorry for getting angry, Caleb. I just want to protect Ryan." Caleb nodded, understanding. "I get it, but I love Ryan, and I'll do everything I can to support him and this baby." "Are you really ready for this?" Alex asked, looking between them. "Because this is a big deal." "I am," Ryan replied, his voice steadying. "I want this. I want to build a life with Caleb and our child." A moment of silence passed as Alex processed their words. Finally, he sighed, a small smile creeping onto his face. "Okay, if you're both sure, then I'll support you. Just promise me you'll look out for each other." "Always," Caleb said, stepping closer to Ryan, taking his hand. Ryan smiled, feeling a sense of relief wash over him. "Thank you, Alex. That means a lot." As the three of them stood together, A sense of unity formed, one that would carry them through the challenges ahead. Caleb wrapped his arms around Ryan, pulling him close as they shared a moment of quiet understanding. The journey ahead would be anything but easy, but they would face it together, a family bound by love and support. Ryan looked up at Caleb, feeling a warmth in his heart that assured him everything would be okay. In the days that followed, they prepared for the arrival of their child, navigating the ups and downs of pregnancy with humor and grace. Ryan found solace in Caleb's unwavering support, and Alex became an unexpected ally, excitedly planning for his new role as an uncle. When the day finally came, Ryan was filled with a mix of anticipation and nerves. With Caleb by his side, holding his hand, Ryan pushed through the pain and uncertainty, the love surrounding him fueling his strength. When their baby was finally placed in Ryan's arms, everything fell into place. Caleb looked at them both with a mixture of awe and pride, and in that moment, Ryan knew they had built a family stronger than any challenge they could face. As they settled into their new life, laughter and joy filled their home. Alex frequently visited, his bond with Ryan's child growing every day. They had weathered the storm of their emotions, and now they stood united as a family, ready to embrace the beautiful journey ahead. And for Ryan, every moment spent with Caleb and their child felt like a blessing, a promise of love and happiness that would carry them through the years to come. A year after their baby was born, Caleb proposed to Ryan in the most unexpected yet heartfelt way. One evening, as they sat in the park with their little one, Caleb nervously pulled out a small ring, eyes full of emotion. "Ryan, you've changed my life in ways I never imagined. Will you marry me?" he asked, his voice shaky but full of love. Ryan was speechless for a moment, but then tears filled his eyes, and he nodded. "Yes, Caleb, of course, I will." They had a small, intimate wedding in the backyard of Ryan and Alex's family home. Alex stood proudly as Ryan's best man, fully supportive of their union. Surrounded by close friends and family, Ryan and Caleb exchanged vows, promising to love and support each other through every challenge. The ceremony was simple, full of love, with their baby giggling in the arms of Ryan's mom as they kissed to seal their marriage. It was the perfect, heartfelt celebration of their journey together, a beginning of their happily ever after.